Okay. Hello, everybody. I'm Rishabh. Welcome to the New Things in Customer Education show. Today we have Nate Brown. Nate Brown is the Senior Director of Customer Experience at Arise Virtual Solutions. He's also a co-founder at CX Accelerator. Nate is well versed with multiple disciplines such as journey mapping, survey process, analysis, customer programs, employee engagement. But before we jump onto those, Nate, I'm really curious. So is this customer experience specifically for software industry or generally speaking?
Yeah, it's a great starting question, Rich. And hello, everybody. I'm so glad to be with you today. So CX is definitely something that everybody's thinking about. I mean, Joe Pine says we're in the experience economy right now, and it very much feels that way. Everybody's looking at CX as the competitive differentiator. And if we think about what customer experience actually is, it's the thoughts and perceptions that people have of the business. That's to paraphrase the Forrester definition. So it doesn't matter what business you're in, people are developing these perceptions and they have feelings towards that brand. And if we want to achieve loyalty, if we want to grow the organization through sustainable practices, then we need to enhance that perception that people have of the organization, regardless of what vertical. So this definitely extends well beyond software.
And so in software, I come from the software world. And I understand that, hey, if you want to measure the customer experience quotient, I would check what's my churn rate, what's my product adoption, what's my product usage.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, as a business professional, is it just limited to the score which I get, like this, or the service score? How do you measure customer experience?
Well, in the software world, there's a great thing to check out called the Software Usability Scale, SUS. And it will give you a great insight in terms of how people are navigating that software, how engaged they are, how much of the software they're consuming and getting value from. I mean, especially if we think about SaaS, I mean, what we're trying to do is guide them towards a meaningful outcome. They're trying to achieve a specific objective using that tool, that capability. And so we want to be the guide for them and bring them there very effectively. And so that software usability scale will give us great insight into that. Another thing to be considering is like that ease of business type metric. How easy is it to do business with X? And so as we layer on beyond the software, layer on the relationship, layer on the different components of that customer journey, it will ask that brilliant question of, are we being a good guide for you? Are we able to reduce that friction in your life so that you can accomplish your definition of success in a better way because you do business with us? And in the customer service area, we love to measure customer effort score. How quickly and easily do we resolve your issue? So it's really putting that focus on friction and the reduction of friction. So those can be a couple helpful metrics to consider as well. But then, as we get into a renewal situation, we want to be looking at like share of wallet. We want to be looking at customer lifetime value, trying to extend that relationship further and open up additional capabilities and partnership inside of that tenure. So those are things even beyond just simple renewal and retention. How much value are we generating inside of that relationship?
I work with a lot of companies, mostly in the software space, to create content to improve customer experience. For example, if I'm a software company, they need content around their product, how to use their product, what are the industry best practices to make sure that I make the most out of the software product, right? Within content, what do you think where should a company invest, right? If they want to, within content for customer experience?
I love that question, Rish. And I would definitely challenge everybody to consider what it looks like to invest in a good community vehicle and have users supporting users and have your product managers active inside of a community. Because what you do there is you go so much further than just generating static videos or how-to content. You're actually creating this dynamic environment in which people can get questions and answers very robustly, very, very much in real time. And as the product continues to evolve and things change, and you're looking to extend beyond just how to, and now you're trying to get a creative response to how do you love this new feature? Does this help you? Could you test this out for us? Could you take a look at this? What's your gut reaction when you see this new thing? And that community vehicle will do so much more than just answering those static questions. It will give you this environment in which you're creating meaningful relationship, meaningful partnership. You're connecting users to other users and galvanizing that idea of that loyalty, that pride around your product, your service. And it will unlock all these creative conversations and capabilities. So static content is great. There's a place and time for that, but also think about how you can create a more dynamic environment for real-time content to be generated every day.
Interesting. And the good thing about the community kind of content is the content is user generated, right? So you
Exactly.
as a company don't have to invest a lot of time, but of course you have to invest a lot of time in engaging the members in the community.
Yeah, that
In terms
community
of
moderation role is so critical. You got to make sure that it's a meaningful experience when you invite people into that community. So there's some back channeling, there's some guide rails, but if you can do it well and get users, your people, your customers generating meaningful content, oh my goodness, that just does so much in terms of the authenticity and the value of that content.
you work within CX in multiple industries. Who is responsible for it? I mean, I hear like conflicting stories that, hey, this is the sales guy's job because he didn't sell the product well, that it's a bad fit customer. Sometimes they say it's a customer success team problem. Sometimes they say it's a product manager's problem because he hasn't created enough content or enough way to adopt that product. Who is responsible for making sure that the customer experience is at the best?
Oh yeah, it's such a great question to probe into. I'm going to try to be really crisp with this because I could talk on this for a long time. But in some ways, it doesn't matter where customer experience sits inside the organization. Because if we think about, again, what CX is, it's that macro view, it's that customer journey cycle that we're trying to reduce friction from and enhance that value, that partnership. So, I mean, it's going to impact every single area. I mean, if we think about the digital experience and how critical that is, I mean, so much of the way we interface with the brand happens right here. So all of your technology focused departments, I mean, have a huge role in the overall customer experience. If we think about marketing and the fact that they create the brand promise, create the expectations initially in terms of what we're going to do for this customer, and in many ways manage that expectation setting, that relationship from the beginning. Marketing is a great place for CX to take root. Customer service as well. as customer service becomes more and more proactive and thinking about that guide role, moving into a more intimate category with our customers and navigating the journey alongside them instead of just that reactive mode. Great place for CX. And as you mentioned, Rish, customer success, which is just a more sales, a more customer-centric way of doing sales and marketing. It's maximizing customer value is really what customer success boils down to. And it's that partnership, being that guide again. So, I mean, that's another great place for CX to take root. So what matters is having a person, a team, a leader who is responsible for the CX strategy, responsible for harmonizing and aligning the organization around the importance of customer experience, but then helping to guide them in terms of their own team, their own department, and how they specifically interact with that strategy, how they bring that strategy to life. And so having a good, strong CX change coalition that represents these different stakeholders from these different areas, that is by far the best way to drive CX.
You spoke about the CX strategy. At what stage of my organization should I get serious about it? Should I be serious about it during my product market fit? Should I be serious about it at the growth stage? Where do you think I should take it serious?
Yeah, I mean, take a look at the HBR Company Identity Matrix. I mean, they have this brilliant framework of how you think about your organization in terms of creating your competencies, your culture, your vision on that ground floor, that foundational level. And then moving up into your brand core. What's our personality? What's our brand voice? Well, how do we represent this promise and clarifying that promise that you're making to the world? How do we represent and manifest that inside the organization and then starting to manifest that outside the organization? Then we look at that market segmentation, We look at our delivery of this promise and our ability to execute on it in a good, consistent way. So, I mean, customer experience, you're going to get very serious about it in that middle level. Let's start first with the employee experience. As Denise Leon says, you are forming a gift that you're giving to your employees first. And once that gift is established and they have it and they can give that forth consistently, that is the only thing that they can give to the customer, is the gift that you have given them. So it's really important that we establish that foundation and give that gift first so that they can extend that gift forward to the customer. So it really starts, in my mind, that CX strategy begins once we lock in that culture, that brand promise level. Then we start talking about, okay, now how can we give this gift outward and express it to our customers?
I love how you put the gift of CX within the company first, and then taking out to customers. And I think it resonates well with a lot of ideology that, hey, employees first, customers second, that kind of ideology. I mean, can you elaborate more about where else have you seen it, and how do you take charge of it?
Yeah, how to take charge of that employee experience element, Rish?
Yeah, employee experience.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be something where it all starts with listening usually. And well, I mean, first of all, it starts with that brand core. I mean, we have to be able to manifest the core of who we are as an organization and the unique way that we're serving the world, and the stated ideals that we have, the personality that we have as we do that. That way we can attract the right people to us. If we don't have that established brand core, then it's not going to be very compelling in terms of who can be an ambassador for us. So it really begins there. So that's going to be a partnership with HR. That's going to be a partnership with the senior leadership team, the CEO for sure, as you're establishing that brand core. But then translating it outward, I mean, anybody that's in a leadership role is going to be responsible for cultivating those ambassadors and making sure that they're being connected to that brand core in a meaningful way, that they're able to be representation of that idea of how you're uniquely serving your community and your customers. And so having that unified capability as a leadership team to have some consistency in terms of what that looks like, that ambassadorship component looks like. Otherwise, what you get is these dangerous subcultures. You might have the ability to really represent the brand core here in this area of the company, in this area of the company, because you got a leader there that really gets it. But that's very dangerous, because what the customer feels is this. They can't relate to you. They can't get to know you because it's fragmented, that customer journey. So we want to create that idea of consistent ambassadorship across the org.
I love your thoughts on that. One last question. If so there are a lot of young, like very young stage software companies who are audience to this podcast. And if we were to give them 2 or 3 pieces of advice on how to improve their customer experience, how would you help them?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a voice of customer engine that you need to begin with. You can't jump in and start making changes to the customer experience or trying to formulate a strategy around it until you truly know the thoughts and perceptions that your customers have of you. Otherwise, you're going to be doing a lot of assumptive hypothesis work. So develop that voice of customer engine first so that you can truly know the changes that you make and the impact that you're having on your customers' lives. And so, I mean, it might take some help and some effort from another resource. You know, obviously, people like me are here to help to establish that VOC engine initially so that you can really do this work intelligently. That would be number one. Number two, I'm going to reiterate the point around the CX Change Coalition. A lot of young organizations might make the mistake of trying to take one person, one small team, and putting CX on them. That team, that person cannot do CX on behalf of the organization. That they are there to help create that strategy, to guide, bring harmony to it, to align people, to draw people into the work. But your ability as a leader inside, maybe even the owner, the co-founder, the CEO of this company, your ability to make it clear to all the senior executives and downward that customer experience is a way we do things here. It's not somebody's job. It's not a department. It's a way of thinking. It's a mentality that we have towards our customers. We care about them. We honor them as an asset, as Gene Bliss would say, the greatest asset that we have, them and our employees. And by growing them, that's how we sustainably grow the business.
Interesting. I think that was great, and thank you so much for taking our time and helping our users. Friends, thank you so much for taking our time for this. If you want to learn more about new things in customer education, stay tuned to this podcast. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.